So, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Uncurring Creativity. Today, we are with
Damon, Dame the designer on Instagram.
Beautiful, and today we're just going to be catching up. Me and Dame go way back, about like 6, 7 years ago, the first time we met. But we'll touch upon that. So, Dame, you want to just share about a little bit about yourself and what you've been up to?
Yeah, so currently I'm a full-time like graphic designer. I do a lot of like marketing design, fashion design, and stuff like that. And then I also do tattooing, like part-time, somewhat full-time
Yeah.
as well. Yeah, keeping myself busy for sure. But it's just I like working in a lot of different mediums, so it's all
hmm
good.
So, did you go to school for graphic design or yeah?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
What was? No, go ahead.
Sorry.
I was going to say, what was that experience like? I'm just curious because I went to school for graphic design as well, but I'm always interested in hearing everyone else's perspectives on
Yeah,
that.
I guess mine it was pretty like it was different. I had probably about 8 weeks in class, and then COVID hit, and then my
Oh
entire
shoot.
post secondary turned into online classes,
Yeah.
which I guess like isn't like the hugest hit in the graphic design thing because like it's they gave us all Adobe keys and we just kind of worked from home, zoomed every day, stuff like that.
hmm
But yeah, it was definitely weird just like not being around in a classroom.
Yeah.
But yeah, I loved it though. I like every program that I did. It was honestly really fun.
Yeah. And I think that's the interesting thing too with COVID. Would you consider yourself in terms of how you get down into your work? You more of like a extrovert, or do you thrive more in the classroom, or are you cool to just kind of like put your head down in the corner, get to work, and just kind of do your own thing?
I'm definitely more of like the kind of in the corner type.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I just there's something about having that kind of privacy just to be able to like really let your mind like cook.
hmm It's interesting too because I found that with COVID, there was two groups of people. One that was upset that like the world shut down, you can't go out and do all that other stuff, and there was another small pocket of people that just kind of use that opportunity to kind of hunker down and kind of focus on whatever their passions were and all that kind of stuff. During that time, what kind of stuff did you learn about yourself when it comes to your art and your creativity? Because you had that spare time to kind of really hunker in and focus on what you're doing. What was that experience like?
It was yeah interesting. Like because I feel like at first when it first hit, I felt like just really like stuck, flustered because there was no like source of inspiration kind of stuff. Like I couldn't go out and look at a lot of stuff. I couldn't go hang out in all the fun places that I usually would. Like I would
hmm
love to go to coffee shops and just like hang out with the laptop and just kind of go from there.
hmm
But when that got all taken away, it was really weird at first, but I just really actually started to enjoy like the freedom of having like I turned my room into like a little home studio, and then
Yeah,
just kind of like the freedom of just yeah, whenever anything hit, I was like, oh yeah, let's just do it.
man. Honestly, it's interesting too because I use that opportunity to kind of put my head down and kind of like really hunker in on a lot of the stuff that I was thinking about in terms of what I wanted to go, but didn't have a real idea of how to do that. And I think what COVID actually allowed me to do was to really hyper focus because I think what I've learned over the last 4 years is I'm pretty much I suffer from ADHD, of some sort and some level of that spectrum. Like I said before we started, like we can have a conversation. I'll look at the time and be like 5:30 right now, and 4 hours to go by. I don't know if that's a gift or a curse, but it's something I've been trying to like kind of balance and try to have a better understanding because I have to remember there's other people around me. Is that something that you've dealt with, especially when it comes to having that extra time and being creative and be multifaceted? That's something you've experienced yourself.
Oh, absolutely. Like yeah, getting lost in a project or something like that, and then
Yeah.
you look outside, and then you're like, why is it dark out?
Yeah. Oh man. So you want to go back and tell everybody how we met? I think it's a
Oh
pretty
yeah.
interesting story how that happened, but it's interesting that
So
we live it now. So
yeah, we met. It was I guess 6 7 years ago. Yeah, we met through the Canada Top Supermodel competition. I think that was the name first.
yeah, I always chuckle
Yeah,
when I hear the title. It's just kind of
yeah.
funny
No, I was
looking
like,
back at it.
oof. I know I get the memories pop up sometimes. I'm like, what a time, man.
Yeah. How did you get like what was your reasoning for going into that and how did you find out about it and what sparked your curiosity into participating in something like that?
Dude, I didn't even want to do it. My mom wanted me to do it.
Yeah,
Like took me to the whole casting thing, and I was like, you know what, whatever. I'll go to the casting. Like, what are the fucking odds I even get
yeah,
anything, right? And then like I see my like thing on the Facebook, like, oh, vote, and I was like, nah, I'm not promoting that.
yeah,
And then
yeah,
like my mom got her whole friend group to promote it, and then like my girlfriend at the time promoted it, and then it was like, oh no, here we go.
yeah.
Next thing you know, and then we're in Toronto. So
That was what. It's honestly, it was the same thing for me. I remember I got home from work. I think the casting ended at 5:30, so I had like about 45 minutes to get downtown. Said fuck it. And the part of the reason as to why I went was just kind of see what happens. I'm like, ah, whatever. It's a nice challenge, my anxiety or whatnot. And the whole Facebook thing came, and I was like, I'm not promoting this either. So I'm not doing that. But I remember, I think when after we got selected and all that stuff happened, the only reason as to why I wanted to do it, because I remember telling my dudes in my men's group at the time that there was a part of it where we had to do a speedo thing, and I was like, nah, man, I'm not fucking doing that. I'm not doing I'm
oh
not doing that.
man.
But I remember, I'm like, if you work, if you've been working on yourself as much as you say you've been working on yourself, you should be able to do that. I remember just thinking to myself, it's just like, okay, fuck, man, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. How does that experience overall not affected you, but what was your takeaway from that overall experience, especially kind of jumping into it because your mom wanted you to partake in it too, and you weren't kind of really just kind of jumping and see what happens. But how did that experience overall kind of benefit you?
I'd say like that really like honestly benefited me a lot just because like I was a super shy, anxious person. Like I didn't like doing a lot of stuff outside.
Yeah,
I was like me and my laptop kind of kid for a good
yeah,
like 3 years up until that point. And then it just really broke me out of my shell. It just like I remembered that it was like fun to be around people, I guess.
hmm,
And for bits and parts. Um, but it was just kind of a cool experience, and I remembered that I was like, oh, I can do stuff like this if I want to. I just have to make the effort to actually go do it. And then
hmm.
yeah, that kind of sparked the whole like I should leave Calgary. Like, what am I doing in this city? I have no
Oh
school
wow,
to be going on anymore. Like, I can just
yeah,
go for it. So luckily, I have family in Vancouver that I came to stay with for a bit, and then yeah, turned out pretty good from there.
that's wild. That's one thing I talk about a lot. In some of the new content that I'm putting out, are just like positive reference points and like the ripple effect of that, and how one decision can kind of transform your life. It sounds like the modeling competition, although you didn't want to partake in it, me neither. Just for more of the challenge, it had a positive ripple effect and kind of affected you in a positive way, especially as an introvert
Oh,
or as a shyer
absolutely.
person. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, like, and I think a lot of it too is just like I was like somewhat interested in modeling, but then I got to see a lot of what happened within the modeling world in that week, and I was like, maybe I don't like this for
Yeah.
my lifestyle.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And I think that was the thing too. I always knew what it was kind of like, but to see it firsthand, I think it's one of those things where everybody's like, money doesn't make you happy. But if you don't have like, if I were to say here's $1 million, it's like, okay, yeah, like I'll be happy for like whatever. But I think it's one of those things that you got to jump in and try it. And for some people, it's not for them. Some people, it's for them. Um,
Absolutely.
how do you think that? So when it comes to shy, introverted, um, how has that, do you think, affected you in terms of your creativity and your ability to express yourself? Is this something that it's always been nurtured?
Not necessarily. Like, I was always like somebody who liked to draw and create stuff, but I never really like thought about it in any extra sense of just like, oh, I'm bored, I'm going to draw something. Oh, I'm
Hmm.
bored, I'm going to do this. I took maybe like two art classes in high school, and that was pretty much it. And yeah, just kind of like figured I was like, if this is something that actually makes me happy to do, like, why not kind of like focus on it and like turn this into something that I can actually like put more of my like energy into.
And out of curiosity, was your school a school that like supported the arts, or was it just kind of like two classes just kind of there just to kind of keep some of the kids happy kind of thing?
It yes and no.
Hmm.
It like supported the arts in the sense where it had like certain teachers and stuff that would really work with you and like be really passionate about what they did. But as a whole, I would say probably not really.
Yeah, it's interesting because I had a similar experience in high school as well. I think that was the first. the first time I ever heard what graphic designer or what a graphic designer was in probably grade 12. And there's only one other student that wants to become a graphic designer too. So I had no idea what I was jumping into. Um, so what's some of your like how do you get into your creative flow, and like how do you get into your flow state? Like what's the ideal situation for you?
Ideal
Because you're
situation.
multifaceted. You do tattoos, clothing, graphic design. Like, does each one have a unique way of starting? You just kind of just jump in and kind of see where it takes you.
I think that my like favorite part about having all of those as like my favorite kind of creative outlets is that they all like fall into pretty similar categories in terms of
Hmm.
the whole visual aspect of what you're creating, or at least of what I like to create. So I'm like pretty simple. I like everything starts in my sketchbook. Like in my sketchbook is an absolute mess. It's
Yeah,
it's ridiculous. I'll have like a tattoo flash page next to like a poster designs like
yeah, yeah.
layout. Like yeah.
Uh, do you collect your sketchbooks over the years? Like, you can go back to a sketchbook you had like from like grade 9 till now, or
Oh yeah, yeah. It's pretty embarrassing. But
yeah. Why would you say it's embarrassing?
it's just like there's so many like little odd in between pages that I've like doodled on, left little notes on, and it's just like hilarious to like look back at like what my thought process of
Yeah, yeah,
was of
yeah.
like certain things, and I was like, wow, you were so young and naive. Like,
That's one thing I always tell people. Like, your sketchbook is almost like it's no different than like a journal. Because sometimes I look back at some of the sketchbooks I had, I'm like, there's like loose notes, little like character design. But the interesting thing too is like there's like I have a sketchbook that I took up to a farm one day, and I wouldn't really consider myself much of an illustrator back then, just kind of doodle. And I remember just drawing out this little thing, and I look back at it, I'm like, that thing was actually the seed that like led to like the children's book that I'm designing. So it's like one of those things where it's like I kind of see what I was trying to do, but I just couldn't articulate it. You find
mm,
yourself looking at your sketchbook being like, oh my God, like I started that there. Now I'm actually doing this thing right now. Like, what are some of the experiences you had looking back?
yeah, that's yeah, pretty similarly like where I'll look through a lot of old sketchbooks and stuff, like and just try to find like one old drawing or something that I had in mind. And a lot of times I'll flip by pages of stuff that like I'm currently trying to like kind of recreate, but in a less refined sense. And it's like,
Hmm.
oh, I guess I forgot that I was always into this. Yeah, it's interesting to see that like even it can go back like 10 years, and it's like, oh, like I was drawing that, like
Yeah.
I was thinking about that then. Cool, like.
So in terms of your family, are you like, do you have siblings,
Yes, I have twin sisters.
twin sister? Are they also on the creative side as well, or more on like an academic side?
Yeah, they're both like pretty creative. Like I'd say like me and my siblings as a whole are like pretty creative, and then like my parents are less in that sense, but they have like
Hmm.
their own like different creative outlets. But me and my sisters are like, well, like I would say like pretty creatively driven.
Hmm. That's pretty cool. And you said you're a tattoo artist as well. Walk us through your journey and how you got started in that. Because it's one
Um,
thing drawing on paper and
yeah.
sketching and all that. Drawing on skin is I won't even. I can never touch that personally. But I was curious to see what your thought process behind that and how that's been working out.
Yeah, tattoos has always been something I've like loved. Like my mom got her first tattoo, and she came home, and I was like, I think it was 13 or something like that, and I was like, oh, can I get one? And she's like,
Yeah.
whoa, whoa, like maybe later. And I think I was like 17, and I finally like pestered her enough to actually sign for a tattoo for me. And
Yeah.
like it was always in the back of my mind that I think it would be a really cool thing to do. And then a lot of like life just kind of passed by, and I was like, oh shoot, that would have been awesome. But then I finally found an apprenticeship right before COVID.
Oh wow.
COVID happened, and then as soon as everything started opening back up, I reached out to the person that was supposed to be my like mentor. Just left town, I guess.
Hmm.
Completely skipped town. So I just like went for it, bought a machine from the local supply shop, and then I just went ham on my legs and some second skin, some oranges, bananas,
Yeah.
all that stuff.
So you just kind of took it upon yourself to just kind of teach yourself.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
crazy. And now you're actually like tattooing people and like getting paid gigs, all that stuff.
It's been quite a journey. Like it's funny to look back at like I can look at it every day on my thigh.
Yeah.
Like my first few tattoos, and like, oh my, that is jank. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's something that I've like really wanted to focus a lot of my energy into. Like, because like I don't want to be that guy that does like shitty kitchen tattoos, like
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
self talk guy. Like I want to actually do really nice refined tattoos.
Hmm.
So tried to put a lot of energy into it, and it's starting to pay off. So that's good.
And you've been getting a lot of support, I'm assuming, as well.
Yeah, it's been really nice. Like even when I was starting, a lot of my friends were like trying to donate skin and stuff, and I was like, yeah, when I get a little bit better, but
Yeah, yeah,
and even
that's
my
legit.
family, like my parents, I've tattooed both of them like quite a bit.
You've tattooed them, your parents as well.
Yeah, yeah. My mom has like a
Wow,
almost a full sleeve done by me.
wow, that's wild. That's crazy,
Yeah.
man. It sounds like your parents and your family seem super supportive in your creative endeavors. How, like, walk us through some of like your creative hardships. Like, were there other times that you kind of hit like a rock, like a hit a wall or just hit a stump and just kind of like, man, I don't know like where this, if I've lost my drive or my passion. Have you ever had those experiences when it comes to your creative endeavors? And what does that feel like?
Absolutely. It's yeah, it's like it's depressing, I guess, to say, because like I'm sure like you're feel similarly in the fact that you put a lot of yourself into like your creative process and like what you're producing. And if I'm like at a loss for producing anything or like can't get to a like problem point myself, it's just yeah, it's kind of like it's a little depressing, but
Hmm.
yeah, I can't say like I can't. It's hard to say like any sort of like specific time frame or anything like that. That was like a full blockage, but a lot. I have experienced like different times.
Hmm. I was gonna say, like, it's interesting when you said like you put a lot of yourself into your work. I've been realizing that cumulatively over the years how much of myself I put in my um and I think a lot of the times what people tend to forget is that as an artist, like you're putting not only yourself, you're putting your soul, you're putting your passion, your drive, blood, sweat, and tears into your work and all that stuff too. How what are some of the ways that you what are some of the things that you do to inspire that creativity and to inspire that drive, inspire that passion? What motivates you to create?
Um, I'd say one thing like it's like I in a competition sense almost. Like
Hmm.
there's a lot of like these like great people that I like obviously look up to, but it's almost in a sense of like, oh, okay, I want to get to there and then see what I can do after, and then try
Yeah.
to climb that ladder above. It's that's a
Hmm.
little motivating sense, and it's just like I think especially with the tattooing, where it's a lot of people told me that it's not going to be a lucrative career. It's something you should really like spend your time doing. It's a waste of this. Like you're just like doodling with that, and it's just kind of like
People
a
said this
I
to
want.
you?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh
Like I
wow.
remember in high school, I was like meeting with a guidance counselor, and he was like, "Well, what do you want to do?" And I was just like, "I would like to be a tattoo artist." And he was like, "It's a terrible idea for a career." He's like, "Well,
Oh,
blah blah
shit.
blah." He's like, "You can go to jail, like all this stuff." And I was like, "Well, okay, dude. Like, if that's
You said
really
you're
what
gonna
you're doing."
you
There's
said
like,
you'd
well,
go
like
to
there's such a stigma about like tattoo artists and like drug addicts
yeah.
and stuff like that. Like, yeah,
I find it's always amazing how, especially in high school or grade school, how one teacher's perspective can like tarnish a whole dream. And that's something that I hear a lot when it comes to a lot of people that are excelling in their arts. There's always that one teacher that they wanted to prove wrong, and they were able to kind of use that as fuel to drive them through their creativity or to drive them to that goal because that one person said they couldn't do anything. Well, it sounds like you've been able to use that as fuel to kind of get to where you're at to
yeah,
some degree.
absolutely, yeah, yeah. And it's just the fact that like I enjoy creating, and like
Hmm.
in a whole sense, like anything like that pops into my mind, I try to see what I can do to create it, just because
Yeah.
it's fun for me to see it makes me happy. So try to
Hmm.
keep doing it.
What's your relationship with your creative abilities, your artwork, and social media? Has that been something that's you've been able to use in a positive sense? Has it been able to affect you negatively? Because as an artist, you're always putting your work out there. People just see the finished product, the process work, or whatnot, but they don't usually know how much you put of yourself you put into it. How has it been navigating that world?
It's interesting for sure. Yeah, it's like especially since Instagram has turned into such a more of like a monetary platform than anything, and like you have to really present yourself in like a specific way to garnish a specific client and stuff like that. And it's really hard to like, I guess, structure yourself for it, but at the end of the day, like I'm probably the one who's going to be the hardest on myself about my art than anybody else. Like anybody that like talks shit or like tries to and like be garbage about it, I probably said the same thing, if not worse, about
Eh,
it.
hit the nail right on the head. That's how I think about it too. Because honest to God, like I'm probably my biggest critic. Like I'd be working on something and I'm like, it'll be done. And I'll look at it, everyone's like, yo, that's sick. I'm like, nah, man, it's not. I can see a little mistake there. It's like, dude, it's fine. Nah, it's not centered properly. Like, bro, it's fine. And I'm like pulling out the ruler. I've done this, man. I've done this. But that's something
No,
that,
there's a blurry pixel there, man. Like,
yeah, exactly. There's a blurry pixel in the corner. Like, there's just little things like that. But what I've realized, and I think the superpower in that is not in the perfectionism, but what I've realized is I was able to take the idea of it being imperfectly perfect, which when the second I started to look at it from that perspective, like, oh wow, like so essentially anything I create, even if I put a scribble on a piece of paper, well, not a scribble, but anything I create is essentially uniquely from me, and no one can technically replicate it. Introducing AI now. What are your thoughts with like the AI stuff and like I said before, like everybody knows, like, you know how much work and blood and sweat and tears you put into your work. How does it feel to see somebody kind of type in a few keywords into some sort of algorithm and pop out artwork? How does that make you feel as an artist? What are your thoughts on that?
it's interesting. I'm pretty divided on the AI thing, like because there is some aspects where I think it's awesome. Like I personally
Mm-hmm.
used a lot of it, like to help me in my job, like even just writing like scripts for Excel sheets and stuff like that, and then like asking it to run it, make sure it works, gives me a new one, and, like little things like that. It's been kind of cool. But as for like the illustration aspect, it's it it's hard to say like anything comes out of it is like art specifically, because
Mm-hmm.
it's just a generation of whatever the machine searched. But
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to use like certain things for like conceptual design. If it's
Yeah.
just like I don't really know how a cat would look in an astronaut helmet. Like I would love
Yeah.
to be able to draw that, but like I want the proportions to actually be kind of cool and like very
Yeah.
similar. So like I'll maybe pop it into AI and then I can tweak the drawing based on like that. But I can use that as a good reference point.
I see. So you've been able to kind of use it as a tool more so instead of using it as like to something to pump out finished and final content or prop.
Exactly.
I find it interesting too, because I think a lot of when I first came across some of the AI artwork and all that kind of stuff, it was almost no different than looking at somebody utilize their imagination, but like utilizing it in a technological sense. Because I don't know about you, but me personally, like I see everything visually. And the second you said cat in an astronaut helmet, I like pictured it. It'll take me a minute or two to draw it out, but like I saw, like that's just how my mind works. And like I think it's just interesting when I hear a lot of people kind of jump um really like jumping into the AI stuff. I'm like, take 5 minutes and like use your imagination first and get that pumping and hold on to that. Because I think
Yeah.
that's something that I am so grateful I've been able to hold on to. And I find that a lot of times when I'm talking to people, actors or director, whatever, whoever I'm speaking to creative wise, there's always at some point where the world or their parents try to stomp that out of them. Um, I don't know. I'm big on imagination. I'm just hoping that with the AI stuff that we don't lose that, because that's just a uniquely human thing. You know what I mean? So
I feel like it'll like kind of maybe like I could like divide people where it could help a lot of people, like improve on their imaginative aspects where it's just like, okay, I need to be giving it more to think about and more to search from. So like it just kind of helps you brainstorm, but then there's obviously going
mhm.
to be the cop out crowd where they try to get the finished artwork out of it and then
You know what's funny
like
when
there's
I
no
when I
work
first
instead.
started like coming across a lot of that stuff, I was concerned at the beginning, but then I just kind of like whatever about it, because I liken it to the sense of like somebody learning Photoshop for the first time and they discover filters. It's like the coolest thing, right? You could do something, and now I'm a graphic designer, but doing filters, right? But like the more you indulge in Photoshop, whatever these programs are, you tend to move away from the things that are automated and things like that, because you have the tools to kind of do everything that you need to do yourself. What's your go-to program when it comes to like the Adobe suites? I know you said you're a graphic designer, so what's your go-to program? And yeah, tell us a bit about
It's
that.
Ooh, it's lately been it's 50-50 between Photoshop and Illustrator. Like I absolutely despised Photoshop when I first started like doing anything. Like it was my biggest enemy. I don't know what it was. I couldn't figure it out for the life of me. But
Yeah.
then something finally clicked and like now I absolutely love it. And like I use it like for a lot of things more than I would use like than I would traditionally use Illustrator for a lot of dating
Hmm.
projects.
Yeah.
So like yeah, Photoshop has been it's been a lot more fun just because also like yeah, I can test a lot more things in Photoshop. It feels like there's just
Hmm.
more capabilities.
It's funny. I was actually the opposite. I loved Photoshop. It was like
Mhm.
riding a bike. Illustrator, I was like, I avoided it like the plague. So I just found it so intimidating, even just opening up. But I remember before I went to college, I'm like, let me just do some like tutorials or whatnot, and I started to kind of understand it. But I think going to school really gave me the confidence to kind of really indulge in it. Still to this day, I'm more of a Photoshop guy, but nonetheless, I still hop between the two.
Have you delved into like sort of like animation with After Effects and stuff?
Yeah. So it's funny because the fundamentals that Photoshop taught me allowed me to learn Illustrator a lot quicker.
Mhm.
And then the fundamentals of Photoshop taught me again, allowed me to use After Effects a lot quicker too, because it's almost like then I've been working on a lesson plan and like just thinking about ways to kind of teach children how they would use Photoshop. And it's
Mhm.
almost like making a sandwich, right? It's just all working with layers. And then
Yeah.
once you apply that to After Effects, you could kind of just, as long as you understand 2D animation and like just the moving of frames, it's pretty simple. And I
Mhm.
was like you in terms of the tattooing thing. I was at a crossroads a couple of years ago before COVID. I was like, man, I don't know what I want to do. Like, do I still want to do graphic design? Do I want to do UI or do I want to do web? I was like, you know what, F it. I'm just gonna buy this After Effects tutorial. And I like hunkered down, like nobody could talk to me, man. I got notes that go back into writing expressions and all that. It doesn't make much sense now looking at it,
Mhm.
but I decided to jump in and it just changed my world because now I can make my 2D Photoshop stuff and Illustrator stuff move. And I don't have to do anything crazy. Like I could just use the base fundamentals that I have to make my little animations. Is animation something you're planning on getting into or you're
Yeah,
indulging in
I've
right
had
now?
to do like a little bit of 2D animation for like some work projects.
Hmm.
So I've had to learn it a little bit like that, but it has blown my mind honestly, like as to like how translatable a lot of the stuff is from the other like Adobe programs into it, and
Yeah.
just like how like straightforward everything is actually in there.
Yeah.
Like I remember I worked on this project and we did it was like kind of like a stop motion animation, and I did
Hmm.
it in like Photoshop timeline where I just like built every frame out,
Yeah.
and then I like opened up After Effects, and then I was like, I could have done this in 3 minutes.
Yeah. When I heard Photoshop video, I was like, man. But I played around with that too, and that kind of showed me, okay, I get like the key, the what do you call them? Those little things like
Oh,
the
the keyframes.
keyframes. I get the
Yeah.
idea of it, but I remember when I first opened After Effects, when I looked at it, I was like, nah, I'm not doing this.
No, that
I
was me
remember,
too. I was like, what is this? There's a bottom panel? Like,
yeah, yeah, it's just so many things. But I think at the end of the day, like I was more, I knew what I could do with it. I just didn't know where to start. And I think that's what ended up happening. I think for me, that gave me more insight to the ADHD. I needed something to hone in on that I can just like focus on. And for me, it's just like, okay, just make this ball go from here to here. Make this thing do like a 3D spin or something. And I think that's what started to really get the ball moving. And it's interesting too because I think once I started to use After Effects and really started to indulge in that, it's like my mind started, like the creativity just like blew up even more because now there's more things that I can do and I can actually take some of the ideas that I have in my head and actually do something with them instead of just kind of making them static images. What are your thoughts on Illustrator? Not Illustrator, InDesign.
InDesign, it is. Oof, love InDesign to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I have to do our at work. I do our brand's fashion catalog every
Mm-hmm.
season, and like the first season that I was on board doing it, like it was the bane of my existence. Like it was worst project I worked on. But then I actually like kind of figured out a little bit more like InDesign shortcuts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's amazing like how much automation you can actually put through InDesign.
Mm-hmm.
And I've cut down like my catalog timeline from like 3 months to 1 month now.
Yeah.
And it's amazing.
it's funny how like with each and every program you learn, you save much more time. So like you could do a lot of stuff you could do in Illustrator to a certain extent. In Photoshop, well, you'd be wasting your time. But you could do a lot of stuff that you do in all the other program, and it's like this ripple down effect. I'll be straight up with you. I hated Illustrator, not Illustrator, InDesign.
Dude, I
That
failed
was
my first InDesign class. Like, I actually failed because like the teacher was boring. He was like 95, but
mhm,
like I couldn't grasp like the whole like grid system of it and like
yeah,
your layouts. I was like, I've taken a layout class. I know how to do layouts, but like what? But then
yeah.
yeah, it was just hard.
It's funny because even looking back, like some of the projects that I did, the only reason as to why I've been able to hang on to my understanding of Illustrator is because we had an amazing photography teacher that gave us we had to make a like a book. And I remember just like, it's such a random product, and I hated it. I absolutely hated it. But fast forward now, like that's the very program that I'm using to put my book together. You know what I mean? So it's kind of wild. But I think what COVID showed me is like, look, dude, you went to school to do all of these things. You know how to do this. How can you apply what you've learned in school to create something for yourself with the talents and skills that you have? What are your goals and ambitions when it comes to your graphic design skill, and where do you see yourself in the next like 5, 10 years?
I want to be moving probably more into like a full time like doing full time fashion design.
Mhm.
I like pattern design, tech pack building, and like the even like t-shirt graphics and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's been one of the things that is like I've had the most fun on when I'm working on those projects. It is, yeah, it's just like I get to, it's like a tattooing, I guess, but in a different kind of medium, which is
Mhm.
probably the most fun part for me. But I still love doing like like concert posters and like little things like that.
And you have a clothing line. You make like clothing and stuff, right?
I'm like kind of working on one right now. I had one that I was going through, and I was kind of like released a little bit over COVID, and
Mhm.
then I've kind of like taken that down, rebranding it a little bit because it was a skateboarding thing at first,
Yeah.
but then yeah, and then I just kind of like discovered a whole new batch of things that I wanted to create, and I was just like, this
It-
is gonna be so weird from a skateboard brand. So like,
yeah. What were some of the things that you wanted to create in terms of the direction you're going? So you skating into what?
like yeah, lately I've been really into like interior design and like contemporary furniture design and stuff like
Oh,
that,
I see.
and just like little like knickknacks and random
Yeah.
products like that.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's yeah, I don't
It's
know.
great.
It's like everything. It's fun.
And that's cool that you're able to start with the skateboarding and it's kind of just taking you somewhere like interior design and skateboard. I can see why you'd be like, oh, I don't know how that kind of match. But it's just crazy how like the creative process is just taking you from somewhere that has like a very specific look and vibe and feel into something that's kind of more. I don't even know how you describe it because what was it about interior design that kind of sparked your curiosity?
It's hard to say. Like, I feel like I just like even as going back to a kid, I can think about like when I was like I would always rearrange my room and like try to curate like my perfect art studio, my perfect setup for like
Yeah.
everything. And then I like realized that like I still do that, and like I still like doing that. I'm constantly rearranging everything, constantly like thinking of like different furniture I want to like put together or
Mhm.
make and stuff like that. And especially with doing a little bit more in the fashion world, like working with uh, people who do editorial stuff, like editorial set design, is like an incredible art form, honestly.
Mhm. That's amazing. I'm trying to think like what is like I don't usually I don't go into anything with any preconceived questions or anything. I kind of let the conversation kind of flow and see where it goes. In terms of like your passion and your drive for creativity and understanding and like where do you was that something that you had since you were a child and just kind of held on to it, or has it been ever evolving and kind of just some like it's just something that's been kind of not fluid but something that you've been open to like you've been curious about?
It's yeah, that's interesting. Like I have been, I guess, more open to like letting that be the main, like, not main driver of like how I live my life, but like a little bit more of like an influence, I guess, in
Hmm.
the most recent years. And looking back, I can say I don't think that I actively explored that, but it was always something that really like pushed the way I lived my life and the things that I was doing and what I would be getting into.
Hmm.
And like especially like the people I would be hanging around with and stuff like that too. It's just like it's funny to look back on because I'm like, oh, I guess I've always had like the similar interests and it's always led me to a certain place. But like yeah, in the past few years I've been really like more analyzing, I guess, my interests and like where I want to be taking them.
Hmm. It's legit. It's funny because when with this book that I've been working on, it's been emotional, stressful. Um, when I say emotional, I mean angry, like a lot of anger, frustration. But it's amazing how like you could take all of that negative energy and kind of like transmute it into something positive. Um, when I was thinking about why I started it and where this has come from, because like I said, like it's been a very, very interesting 2.5 years working on it. But the one thing I think about constantly when I'm looking back at it was at some point in my childhood I wanted to be a comic book artist. And I remember hearing somewhere that that wasn't a lucrative career path, but somewhere inside me was aware that I wanted to do something that involved like creating something for people to pick up and touch and feel and something tangible. What is it? Describe the feeling you have as a creative, being able to create something and see it on somebody, or create something and touch it. Like, walk us through the process and the feeling that you feel when you come up with an idea, work on it, put it into Photoshop, send it to print, and the feeling you get when it actually arrives. Because every time I order something I create, I feel like a kid on Christmas. Walk us through that process and what it feels like.
Oh, that is like yeah, probably the best like feeling to describe it. It's like a kid on Christmas. Like I'm probably the most visibly giddy person when the UPS package arrives at work with the samples, and it's like, and it'll be like, oh, this is literally like a package design that we're working on, and it's the most non-sequential thing, but like I'm just like, oh, this is so cool. Like I
Yeah.
made this. Like like I thought of this from start to finish, and it's a thing now. Like yeah, it's just a kid on Christmas entirely. It is like probably the coolest thing, especially when it comes to tattoos. Like I get to share that with somebody else who is also as visibly excited to have this new thing on them. It's like Christmas for both of us.
I like that must be a like such a crazy feeling to see somebody walk away with a piece of your artwork on them for the rest of their life and just to see how excited they are. Like, what did that feel like when you did your first tattoo?
Oof. Um,
Whether or not it was good or bad or how you feel about it, like what was the initial feeling to see that person like kind of like, damn it, like this is on my arm, and like what was the feeling that you're left with after experiencing that?
um, it started like at first I was like, wow, that's so cool. Like I can't believe I just did that. And then like I think that the inner critic set in, and then I was just like, oh my god, what did I just do to this person? Like I just ruined their
Oh,
arm. Like what the hell? And then just going through all that
interesting.
and stuff, and then after just kind of like calming down from that and just like, hey, like if there's mistakes, there's mistakes. They came knowing that this is the first tattoo and everything. Like we're both happy. It like we're both pretty happy with how it turned out, like based on what I was working with and like the skill set that I was working with at the time. So I
Hmm.
think that I just need to celebrate that and work for the better one next time.
That's a great outlook. Because I would have beat my, I would have like, I would have beat myself up like for a minute. I made a mistake in my first book. I was planning on numbering the pages, but then I decided not to. I ordered like 25, or was it, I think, yeah, I ordered like 30 or 25. Get them in the mail, giddy like a 4-year old, open them up. That's the first thing I see. A number 2 in the corner of the book. And then the other pages didn't have it. Bro, I was livid. I was livid. But it's like what you said. In that moment, I'm just like, I knew what I was doing when I set out to do this. I didn't want anything to be perfect. I mean, I wanted it to, but
Mhm.
it's outside of my control at this point now. I wasn't going to take all 50 books and burn them, so I decided to still kind of thing. But it's a good mindset, especially as a creative, because a lot of the times, especially when you're doing tattooing, like that inner critic, and you putting something on someone else's body, and if they're not happy with you living with that, Man, that's enough to I can't even imagine what some people might have go through to have to deal with that. But it sounds like you've been able to kind of navigate that.
Yeah, I've been lucky enough that I haven't fucked up anybody too bad.
Hmm, hmm,
And every I can say that every client that I've worked with has been like honestly such a nice person. Been
hmm.
super open to like any of my design decisions and stuff too. Like anytime I've been like, "Do you mind if I just want to try to shade it a little bit like this instead of like that?" They're like, "Yeah, do your thing, man." I'm like, wow, okay, sweet. Like it's just insane to like have somebody trust you for like your artistic abilities.
Yeah, yeah, and validate that. That's amazing.
Mm.
Man, I don't know if a tattoo. I don't know if I'd ever be able to. I can. I just had like a little image in my head, like getting ready to actually put the needle on, and I'm just like shaking. I don't even know if I could do it. Oh God. Oh man, that's amazing. So what are some of your plans over the next couple of months with the new year coming up, September to fall? Do you have any plans for the fall, releasing anything, or what can we expect from you?
I'm not sure about releasing anything. I'm still kind of just like working through trying to figure out the release date of everything. I'm trying to build
Hmm,
like an initial collection, and I don't really want to do any sort of like collections after that, but I just want to have like an initial offering that's a good amount of stuff that I'm happy with, and then just
hmm.
kind of off one-off products from there because it's too stressful to build full collections, honestly.
Yeah,
Um, but then I think yeah, I think like creatively wise, I probably want to be spending a little bit more time tattooing because that's like really what I've been more interested in. I find that my sketchbooks are filling up with more and more tattoo ideas than graphic design ideas at the moment. So I think I want to
yeah.
focus more on that.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's hard to say. I just kind of want to leave the door open and just kind of see where everything goes. That's kind of the
Yeah,
point of where I'm at in the creative journey.
beautiful. I think one thing a lot of creators rely on, especially when they're trying to get into flow state, is music. Is that would you say that's something that you rely on to get in your flow state?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
What are some of your musical influences, and how do you think it affects you as a creative?
A lot of I love like I listen to a lot of hip hop. That's probably like 95% of what I listen to. And
Hmm.
I'm not sure of like exactly what about it I relate to be honest. Like I didn't
Hmm.
grow up in any sort of like hood or anything like that. It was a pretty regular middle class neighborhood type thing.
Hmm.
But it's yeah, it's just like I feel like they just articulate so well of different emotions that I usually can't think of
Hmm.
that really helped me kind of take that, translate it to more of a visual aspect for myself, and then I can translate those thoughts into paper through that, which
I
has been
see.
super helpful.
Hmm. It's one thing I've been listening to for like the last three, actually a lot recently. like in order for me to get into my flow state, I have to listen to like jungle, like 90s jungle, very specific. There's just something about it, man. Like I'd be sitting here getting ready to draw and getting ready to get into my flow state and whatnot. And like just something whimsical and airy about the music that was like take me away. Like it's just like some like the music, like the producer kind of takes me on my shoulders and just like, oh, we're going for a journey. And like I said, 3 hours will go by and I'm like, holy shit, like what the have you ever had an experience where you sat down, got ready, you looked at the time, 3 hours have gone by, and you sit down, you look at what's in front of you, and you're like, holy shit, what have I been doing? Like this is amazing. Have you ever had an experience like that?
Yeah, like there's been a few different times where I just kind of like, and I think that usually happens to me when I don't have any sort of specific finished product or any idea of where I'm going with it in mind, and I'm just kind of like I'm just gonna put pen to paper or whatever I'm doing, or like mouse to page or something like that.
Hmm.
And it's usually yeah, like I get to parts, and then I usually end up hyper focusing on like super specific little things about it, and then I end up like stepping back or zooming out, and then I'm like, oh wow, like cool, like I like this, like, and I feel like as a creative, it's like I don't like my work a lot of the time,
Hmm.
like, but there is the few times where it's just like I do have to everything comes together, and it's like, oh sweet, this is exactly what I wanted, and like I really like it.
Hmm. Man, sounds like a lot of experiences that I've spoken to people about, especially creatives, are very similar in the sense that we're there working on it, physically, but at the same time we're not there. If that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
How would you describe that? Like what is that? You think that you're somewhere off somewhere else, or like how would you describe that to somebody that doesn't consider themselves an artist and has never experienced flow state? How would you describe that to somebody?
For me personally, I'd say that like flow state is like something in my brain just kind of like it's like it's just moving in one gear and then it just shifts another gear. And I'm actually like everything from there on out is like blocked off, walls are in front, like on my side, and then it's just what's in front of me, like what I'm working on. It's like I'm in a little box with my
Yeah,
project, and
yeah,
it's like I get to choose when I leave, kind of
yeah.
thing, which
I
is
think
like the
that's
best part of it.
yeah. I was gonna say that's a super.
Yeah.
No, I'm gonna stay a couple more minutes and finish this up.
But
Um,
then and then you're just like, oh, I should have eaten lunch 2 hours ago. Like,
dude, I think that's one thing. I'm gonna quote my buddy on this. Like being in a relationship is like holding a mirror up to yourself. I hated him when he said that to me the first time I heard it because I knew what it meant. But it's something I think about. And I think being with my girlfriend, um, having her witness that has shown me that like sometimes this could be unhealthy. Because legit, sometimes I'm just like I'm so hyper focused, and a lot of the times the work that I'm doing now it means a lot to me because it's solving a problem that I've seen other people experience. Where it gets to the point sometimes I'm there for like I'd be so absorbed I won't even eat. And I think for me over the years it's been coming to find a balance and knowing when okay, yes, you can hop back into that state later, but you have to remember that you need to take care of your human self and your body and whatnot too. But I think having her kind of be there to kind of like tap me on the shoulder and like wake me up out of that state has been very beneficial. As much as I might not want to be woken up out of that state in the moment, but I think it's super beneficial. Oh shoot! Sorry, I'm just plugging my laptop. Sorry.
no worries. Yeah, it's interesting. Like, it's hard because I feel like when you're in that flow state too, it's hard to remember that it's something that you can achieve regularly. And like I was getting that mindset of like, oh my god, like I'm just killing it right now. If I stop, then I might break this, and I might not get whatever touch I have with it back. And it's like
I'm
I
so
want to
glad you
finish the
said
point.
that. I'm so glad you said that because to hear someone else say it helps me realize that I'm not crazy. Because a
Yeah.
lot of times I feel like, man, I'm just like it's almost done. It's never almost done. It's never almost done. I remember times, dude, like when I first like back when I was like 19, I had no idea what I wanted to do, but I was just still dabbling in graphic design and all that stuff. I'd stay up until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning because it was almost done working on something. But I think that's amazing, man. Like I think a lot of the time when I look back, a lot of time it was this scarcity mindset of being like, if I stop now, I'm not gonna be able to start back where I was or have that spark or have that initial drive. So I appreciate you sharing that. But that's part of the reason that's why I like having these conversations too, because I think for myself as a creative, I've been going around thinking that I was the only one experiencing a lot of this stuff. When in actuality, creatives from all the types of different fields go through the same thing. So yeah, it's pretty interesting to actually stop to think about that. Because you can, if you essentially think about it, like you can hop back in right where you left off, provided you give yourself the opportunity and the space to do so. Would you not?
Yeah, it's like I think the best way to describe it is like I read this in not this exact quote, but like in the
Mm-hmm.
most recent like Rick Rubin book. I don't know if you've like read it, but it's really good. But it's he talks about like how like creativity is a muscle, just like anything else, and like if you exercise it enough, it's going to be stronger and easy to use and call on at any time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just about yeah, like, that like discipline and getting in that creative gym all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's essentially. Oh man. So, where can we find you? And yeah, just tell us a little bit about your socials and where we can find you, your website and whatnot.
Website is currently in the works. I took it
Mm-hmm.
down just to do a little bit of a refresh on it. And my socials for the moment are Dame the Designer and Designed by Dame, both on Instagram and TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully launching some other socials. Got to get across all the content, but it's a work in progress. So
Yeah. What are the socials you're planning on getting on?
I would love to start doing like more YouTube stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not much to sit there in front of the camera by myself and talk.
Tell me about it.
It's really hard, but I'm sure that I could figure out some sort of video format that I would I like. I really like doing some like random cinematic shots and stuff like that. So I'm
Yeah.
sure that I could find a way to tie that into my artwork.
hmm One thing I would say is I'd encourage you to just jump in. This whole podcast thing is new to me. I don't know. I'm the type of person, I'm just like a self-starter. I think we're very similar in that sense. If I want to do something, I just jump in and do it. Um, I'm still trying to get used to talking in front of the camera, despite even doing the modeling stuff and all that too. But I think what I've realized doing this, the initial idea was just kind of have conversations. And interestingly enough, I've learned a lot about other people and their drives and what kind of how they work and how they relate to themselves as an artist and a creative. But at the same time, like I learned a lot about myself having some of these conversations. And I think that's like the biggest takeaway. Ultimately, even in our conversation, just these little aha moments where I realized that damn, like I'm not the only person that to going through that. Because you hear other people saying it, but to talk to you like just now, like and for you to say what you said earlier is like, damn, like okay, cool. Like that's something I could kind of like meditate on.
Right? It's nice when like you like there's like a feeling you have, but then like somebody else puts it into words, and you're like, yes, like that is
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's something I've experienced over the last couple of years, especially with the work I'm doing now. It's finally hearing someone else articulate what I've been thinking for like the last like nearly 30 years and to finally actually be able to make that connection with my artwork, I think has been a huge thing because now it's the purpose driven stuff. But you'll be hearing more about that later.
Awesome, man. Awesome.
But I think right now the stage that I'm at, and which is why I started to do the podcast again, because the book is done. But the one thing I've been loafing on is doing the very thing that we're doing right now, talking to the camera, talking and having conversations. Because I think that's the one step that as an artist that we tend not to want to do. Um, and you've been doing that with socials and all that, I'm assuming too, right? How's that been getting comfortable with that side of things? You can't avoid it.
Yeah, definitely can't avoid it. Like I'm trying to up myself more and more about like just showing my face in general, doing stuff because I just felt like it was ultimately unnecessary at first. I was like, it's my artwork that should speak for itself, but it's my personality behind the artwork also that really is what is going to make it monetary. So
Mhm.
can't just let my random scribbles speak for itself. So
Yeah.
get it.
No one's gonna get it. Exactly. No one's gonna get it. And I think that's another thing too that I realized too. Like I think, especially as an artist, I want people to understand my thought process, and especially since an image is worth 1,000 words, I want somebody to actually see and understand why this thing means what it means to me, just so I have a better idea of what I'm trying to get across. Because just to leave it up for interpretation, I've left some stuff up for interpretation, like sketches with me and my girlfriend, just kind of talking about stuff. I'm like, no, that's not what I'm trying to do. It's actually a lot more simple than that. Like, and I thought I was overdoing it, but I think, and that honestly, that's kind of it's the weird thing that this children's book has taught me that like there's been times where like we go up north and just kind of get away from the city for a bit, and I'd be like drawing stuff, or remember I had a conversation with my buddy. We were on the phone for about an hour, and I was just kind of sketching while we were on the phone talking. I remember getting off the phone, I was looking at the artwork. I was like, holy shit. And I showed him the finished stuff. I'm like, dude, like that day in 2020, we were talking on the phone, like, this is what I came up with. I had no idea where I was. I don't know. It's almost weird because it's like when I look closer, what I was trying to get across is actually trying to tell a story. But it's just some of these like weird experiences that I'm trying to like, I think that's what the podcast is for too as well, to try to like, I'm not crazy, am I? Like, is everybody else like as an artist kind of going through the same thing? And I think
Oh yeah.
overall it's kind of like, man, like it's interesting how like your subconscious mind and your mind works to facilitate all these things and expression, and it's crazy. So I appreciate you being on.
And no, thank you for having me on. Like I appreciate reaching out. This was really fun.
Mm-hmm. Were you nervous coming on, or like because a lot of people in there, especially artists, they don't want to talk and they want to be on camera. How is that leading up to that?
Yeah, I'm not like yes and no, like a little bit nervous, but overall, like not really. Like feel like you're very easy to talk to.
Mhm.
Felt like comfortable talking to you before, so even though it's been yeah, it's about seven
It's
years.
been a minute, like 7 when I
But
heard the 7 years, like, god damn, like, time flies.
yeah, no, I was 18. Yeah, jeez.
Holy shit. My 20s is zoomed by. I'm 30, I'm 34, and it's interesting because ever since I was 16, for some strange reason, 35 has always been the number that I said I wanted to do X, Y, and Z.
Mm,
And it's like the closer and closer I get to it, the more I've accomplished to that. So just like something internally just like holding on to that. But it's just amazing. Like even just meeting you from the modeling competition, I think you're one of the only people I still talk to or even reached out to or really follow because you're actually doing something outside of that. So it's cool watching you grow and seeing you develop as an artist, and it's inspiring, especially because you are a tattoo artist as well. So it's
thank you.
been cool kind of watching that on social media. So I thought, why not just reach out to him and have a conversation?
Hell yeah, man. No, this has been
Yeah,
awesome.
so I appreciate you stopping by and sharing a bit about and catching up first and foremost, and looking forward to seeing you continue to grow as an artist.
Yes, sir. Yeah,
All
no, if
right.
I'm ever in a Toronto area, we should definitely like catch up sometime.
Oh, for
Maybe
sure.
I'll do a tattoo for you.
100%. I'm down. I'm down. Just tell my buddy, I'm like, I think I'm overdue. I need to get another one soon, but I'm definitely down.
Hell yeah.
All right. So thank you guys for joining us for another episode of Uncovering Creativity with Dame, Chad. Look forward to